I never thought much about Fridays until Callum started showing up. My roommate Derek mentioned his brother might crash at our place occasionally. I shrugged it off. Our apartment was small, a two-bedroom in the kind of building where you could hear your neighbors' conversations through the walls, but we had a couch. Derek said Callum worked construction about 40 minutes away, and sometimes the commute got brutal. Made sense. I told him it was fine. The first time Callum arrived, I was in the kitchen making dinner. I heard the door open, and Derek's voice, louder than usual, that particular brightness people get when family shows up. Then I heard another voice, deeper, with this slight rasp to it like gravel rolling in a stream. I turned around and there he was. Callum was nothing like Derek. My roommate was lean, all nervous energy and quick movements. Callum filled the doorway. Broad shoulders, arms that strained against his flannel shirt sleeves, dark hair that fell across his forehead in a way that looked accidental, but somehow perfect. He had these green eyes that caught the light from our kitchen fixture, and when they landed on me, I felt something shift in my chest. "You must be Jasper," he said, and extended his hand. His palm was rough with calluses, his grip firm but not aggressive. "Thanks for letting me crash." I managed to say something normal, probably. I don't actually remember. I was too busy trying not to stare at the way his jaw curved, the faint shadow of stubble along it. That night, he took the couch without complaint. Derek threw him a blanket and pillow, and Callum settled in like he'd done it 100 times. I went to my room and lay awake longer than I should have, listening to the apartment's nighttime sounds, wondering why my heart was still beating faster than normal. The thing is, Callum kept coming back. Not occasionally. Every single Friday. At first, I told myself it made sense. The commute, the gas money, whatever. But our apartment wasn't particularly close to his job site either. And Derek mentioned once, casually, that Callum had a friend in the city who'd offered him a place to stay, closer to work, more convenient. But every Friday evening, like clockwork, Callum would walk through our door with that same easy smile, drop his duffel bag by the couch, and settle in for the weekend. I started looking forward to Fridays in a way that felt dangerous. I'd catch myself checking the time, listening for his knock. I'd plan to be in the living room when he arrived, pretending to watch TV or read, just so I could be part of that initial greeting, just so I could see him walk in. Derek usually went out Friday nights. He had a girlfriend, Maya, and they'd disappear to her place, or catch a movie, or hit up bars in neighborhoods I'd never bothered exploring, which meant Fridays became this strange, suspended time where it was just me and Callum in our small apartment. He'd ask what I was making for dinner. I'd started cooking more elaborate meals on Fridays without really acknowledging why. Pasta dishes with homemade sauce, stir-fries with vegetables I'd carefully chopped. Nothing fancy, but more effort than my usual rotation of sandwiches and takeout. "You don't have to feed me," Callum said one night, but he was already sitting at our small kitchen table watching me work. "I'm cooking anyway," I lied. "Might as well make extra." He smiled at that, this soft expression that made my stomach flip. "Well, I appreciate it. Derek lives on cereal and frozen pizza. This is actually good." We fell into a rhythm. He'd tell me about his week, the construction projects he was working on. There was something mesmerizing about the way he described his work, the technical details mixing with stories about his crew. He talked with his hands, these broad gestures that drew shapes in the air. I found myself leaning forward, watching his fingers move, imagining what those hands could do. I told myself to stop, to be normal. Callum was straight as far as I knew. He was Derek's brother. He was crashing on our couch out of convenience, nothing more. But then there were these moments, like the time he asked about the book I was reading. I'd left it on the coffee table, some literary fiction thing about loneliness and connection. He picked it up, thumbed through it, asked me what it was about. We ended up talking for 2 hours about stories and meaning, and what makes people feel less alone in the world. His eyes never left mine. He listened like what I was saying actually mattered, like my thoughts were worth the space they took up. Or the Saturday morning I woke up early and found him in the kitchen, already awake, coffee brewing. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that had seen better days, his hair messy from sleep. He looked softer in the morning light, less guarded. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'm used to early mornings. Construction starts at dawn." I poured myself coffee and sat across from him at the table. The apartment was quiet, Derek still asleep, the city outside just beginning to stir. It felt intimate, this shared silence, like we were the only two people awake in the world. "Can I ask you something?" Callum said after a while. My heart jumped. "Sure." "Why do you live with Derek? I mean, you two seem pretty different." I laughed. "We are. We met through a roommate finder app. Needed someone to split rent, he needed the same. It's practical more than anything." Callum nodded slowly. "You ever get lonely, living with someone you're not really close to?" The question hit deeper than it should have. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, feeling its warmth. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I guess everyone's lonely sometimes, right? Even when they're surrounded by people." He looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Yeah, they are." The weekends started to develop their own patterns. Derek would disappear with Maya. Callum and I would end up doing mundane things together, grocery shopping, walking to the coffee shop on the corner, watching movies on our beat-up couch, sitting close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I started noticing small things, the way he'd laugh at my jokes, this genuine sound that seemed to surprise him, how he'd find excuses to be in whatever room I was in, the way his eyes would track my movements when he thought I wasn't looking. I told myself I was imagining it, projecting my own feelings onto innocent actions. Callum was just friendly, just comfortable around me. Nothing more. But then came the night everything shifted. It was a Friday in late September. Derek had left earlier than usual. Maya had tickets to some concert she'd been excited about for months. The apartment felt especially quiet after they left, just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of traffic. Callum and I were on the couch, watching some action movie neither of us was particularly invested in. He was closer than usual, our shoulders almost touching. I could smell his cologne, something woody and warm that made my head spin. "Jasper," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the movie's dialogue. I turned to look at him. His expression was serious, almost nervous. I'd never seen him nervous before. "Yeah?" He opened his mouth, closed it, ran a hand through his hair. "I need to tell you something." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Okay. I don't actually need to stay here on weekends. The commute thing, it's not really that bad. And my friend Alex, he's got a place that's way more convenient. Closer to work, closer to everything." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Oh. I've been coming here because..." He paused, his jaw working like he was chewing on the words before releasing them. "Because of you." The world seemed to tilt. "What?" Callum turned to face me fully. "I noticed you the first time I came here. The way you moved around the kitchen, the way you listened when I talked, like you actually cared. And I thought it was just, I don't know, appreciation or something. But then I kept finding excuses to come back every week, and I'd tell myself it was to see Derek, to save on gas, whatever. But it wasn't." He reached out, his hand hovering near mine on the couch cushion between us. "I'd think about you during the week. Wonder what you were doing, what you were reading, what you'd cook on Friday. I'd count down the days until I could see you again. And I know this is complicated. You're my brother's roommate. I don't even know if you're interested in guys, if you're interested in me, but I couldn't keep pretending I was just crashing here for convenience." I stared at him, my mind racing. Every Friday, every conversation, every shared meal and movie and quiet morning, all of it had meant something. All of it had been leading here. "I am," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You are what?" "Interested in guys, interested in you." I turned my hand over, palm up, an invitation. "I've been looking forward to Fridays for months. I started cooking elaborate dinners just so you'd stay in the kitchen longer. I'd make excuses to be in the living room when you arrived. I thought I was going crazy, reading into things that weren't there." Callum's hand closed over mine, his calloused palm rough against my skin. The touch sent electricity up my arm. "They were there," he said. "They've been there the whole time." We sat like that for a moment, hands linked, the movie forgotten in the background. Then Callum leaned in, slow enough that I could have pulled away if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. I met him halfway. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like we were both afraid of breaking something fragile. His lips were warm, slightly chapped from working outside in the wind. He tasted like the coffee we'd shared earlier. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine. "Is this okay?" he asked. I answered by kissing him again, harder this time, my free hand coming up to cup the back of his neck. He made this small sound in his throat that sent heat pooling in my stomach. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer. We broke apart, both breathing hard. Callum rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. "Me too." "What do we do now?" It was a good question. The practical part of my brain started listing complications. Derek, the living situation, the fact that Callum lived 40 minutes away. But looking at him, at the vulnerability in his green eyes, the complications seemed smaller than they had a moment ago. "We figure it out," I said, "together." That night, Callum still slept on the couch. But before bed, we sat together in the kitchen, talking until nearly 3 in the morning. He told me about realizing he was bisexual in his 20s, the confusion and fear that had come with it, the slow acceptance. I told him about coming out in college, the freedom and terror of it. We talked about Derek, how to approach this with him. Callum was worried about making things weird, about putting me in an uncomfortable position with my roommate. I was worried about the same things. But we agreed to take it slow, to see where this went, before making any announcements. The next morning, Derek came home while Callum and I were making breakfast. If he noticed anything different, he didn't say. We all ate together, the conversation casual and comfortable. But under the table, Callum's foot was pressed against mine, a secret point of contact that made me smile into my eggs. The following Friday, Callum showed up as usual. But this time, when Derek left for Maya's, Callum kissed me in the doorway, unhurried and deep. We spent the evening tangled together on the couch, talking and kissing and learning the geography of each other's bodies through our clothes. "I should probably get an air mattress or something," he said at one point, his lips against my neck. "The couch is terrible for my back." I laughed. "You could sleep in my room." He pulled back to look at me. "Yeah? Yeah, I mean, if you want to." His smile was brilliant. "I want to." That night, Callum slept in my bed. We didn't do anything beyond kissing, both of us content to just be close, to fall asleep with our bodies pressed together. I woke up in the middle of the night to find him watching me, his hand gently brushing hair from my forehead. "Sorry," he whispered. "Didn't mean to wake you." "It's okay." I shifted closer, tucking my head under his chin. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am, that Derek needed a roommate, that you said yes to me crashing here, that I had the guts to finally tell you how I felt." I pressed a kiss to his collarbone. "I'm lucky too." The weekends became ours. Derek was oblivious, wrapped up in his own relationship. Callum and I existed in this bubble of new intimacy, learning each other. He told me about his childhood, growing up in Derek's shadow, always feeling like he needed to be tougher, more masculine. I told him about my family, the complicated relationship with my father, the relief of finding myself in a city where I could be anonymous and free. We went on actual dates, coffee shops where we'd sit for hours, his hand covering mine on the table, late-night walks through the city, our shoulders bumping. A museum on a rainy Sunday, where we stood in front of paintings, and he asked me what I saw in them, genuinely interested in my interpretations. One Saturday night, about a month after that first kiss, we were lying in my bed, the room dark, except for the streetlight filtering through the curtains. Callum was tracing patterns on my bare shoulder, his touch sending shivers across my skin. "I told Derek," he said quietly. I tensed. "What? When?" "This afternoon, when you were at the store. He called and It came out. I told him about us." My heart was racing. "What did he say?" Callum was quiet for a moment. "He said he already knew. Apparently, we're not as subtle as we thought. He said he saw the way I looked at you that first night, and he's been waiting for one of us to make a move." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "He's okay with it?" "He's happy for us. He said you've seemed lighter the past few weeks, more present, and he likes seeing me happy." Callum pressed a kiss to my temple. "He did threaten to kill me if I hurt you, though. Very brotherly of him." I laughed, relief flooding through me. "What did you say?" "That I'd deserve it if I did." His arm tightened around me. "But I won't Hurt you, I mean. I'm all in here, Jasper. This isn't just a weekend thing for me. I turned to face him, our noses almost touching in the darkness. It's not for me either. We kissed, slow and deep, and I felt the last of my walls crumble. This was real. This was happening. The Fridays kept coming, but they meant something different now. Callum still showed up with his duffel bag, but he'd head straight to my room, kissing me hello before even greeting Derek. We'd cook dinner together, our movements synchronized in the small kitchen. Derek would join us sometimes, and it was easy, comfortable, the three of us sharing a meal and conversation. Other times, Derek would give us space, and Callum and I would steal these moments of intimacy, making out against the kitchen counter, slow dances to music playing from my phone, conversations that stretched into the early morning about our futures, our dreams, what we wanted from life. About 3 months in, Callum brought up the idea of getting his own place in the city. I hate leaving you on Sundays, he said, and the commute really is getting old. I could find something closer to work, maybe a studio or 1 bedroom. We were in my bed, the Sunday morning light streaming through the window. I traced the line of his jaw with my finger. Would you want a roommate? He caught my hand, pressed a kiss to my palm. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Maybe. I mean, my lease with Derek is up in 2 months. And I've been thinking, if you're getting a place anyway. Yes, he said immediately. Yes, move in with me. I want to wake up next to you every morning, not just on weekends. I want to come home to you after work. I want all of it. My chest felt too full, like my heart was expanding beyond the space my ribs could contain. Okay then, let's do it. We told Derek that night. He took it well, said he'd been thinking about asking Maya to move in anyway. Everything was falling into place in a way that felt almost too easy, like the universe was finally paying me back for all the lonely years before. Callum and I found a place in early December, a 1-bedroom in a building with actual insulation and windows that didn't rattle in the wind. It was small, but it was ours. We moved in on a Saturday, Derek and Maya helping us haul boxes up 3 flights of stairs. That first night in our apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, Callum pulled me close on our new couch, the one we'd picked out together. No more sleeping on couches I don't need, he said, smiling. I kissed him, tasting the future on his lips. No more counting down to Fridays. Every day is Friday now. And he was right. Every day became something to look forward to. The ordinary moments transformed into small miracles. Making coffee together in the morning. The sound of his key in the lock when he came home from work. The way he'd wrap his arms around me from behind while I cooked dinner, his chin resting on my shoulder. We built a life together in that small apartment. Learned each other's rhythms and routines. Had our first fight about dishes in the sink and made up in bed, laughing about how stupid it was. Hosted Derek and Maya for dinner and felt proud showing off our space, our togetherness. Sometimes I think about that first Friday, when Callum walked through the door and something in me recognized something in him. How I had no idea that the man sleeping on our couch would become the person I'd build a home with. How all those weekends were leading us here, to this life we've created. Callum still tells people he used to crash at his brother's place to save on the commute. But late at night, when it's just us, he admits the truth. He came back every Friday because he was falling for me, because he couldn't stay away, because some part of him knew that couch would lead him to our bed, to our life, to us. And I'm grateful for every single Friday that brought us here. Total_char_count, 24,847.